Okay, let's talk about emulation on the GameCube. I recently got the Cube ODE, and after setting everything up, I finally thought to give some emulators a try. But because my hardware currently limits me to using Homebrew with the GC loader, my Homebrew options were very low. I only had access to 4 emulators, not 64. A Nintendo 64 emulator that's incredibly limited on the GameCube. But does it work with Super Mario 64? Yes. There's also enhanced MGVA, which currently does not load 32MB games like Kingdom Hearts or GBA Video, and most of the popular games are maybe too slow to be enjoyable. There's a recent-ish version of Genesis plus GX that works pretty much perfectly. And finally, there's WiiSX, or rather CubeSX, for PlayStation, and it's in my experience really good. All my childhood games, the ones that matter at least, are working great. But I want more. This isn't enough. I want to see what else my GameCube is now capable of. I want to see Knuckles' chaotix on this thing, which leads me back to RetroArch. In fact, when I first found out about the possibility of using the GC Loader's SD card for Homebrew, there was something that immediately came to mind. Could I bring RetroArch, my version specifically, up to date and fully working on the GameCube? My version of RetroArch is based on a 2015 build with a focus on shaving off a lot of code in order to keep the memory footprint as low as possible, while also adding some useful Wii specific features, as well as some newer RetroArch features like the menu animations. When it comes to updating the building tools, which is a necessity for GameCube, because otherwise there would be no GC Loader or SD2 SP2, it turns out that most of the compilation errors come from the various options displayed on the menu. Once I figured out what needed to be changed, I went option by option fixing every entry. I now had a working build of RetroArch for GameCube, updated to work with the latest dev kit and LiveOGC2. People who use my version will benefit from things like automatic resolution switching and Extrem's GPU prescaler, allowing GBA games to scale nicely at SD resolutions. The only big downside is that I haven't managed to use the extra 16MB of RAM that the GameCube has, so many cores are a bit pressed for memory. Once I had everything set up, I began to test cores in order to select the best ones to include. Even though I love retro games, I tend to stick with Super Nintendo, PS1, and the Game Boy Advance. But I do realize that if I'm gonna do this kind of project, I have to get familiar with all sorts of retro consoles and arcades. I have to go deep, so I can take as much advantage of RetroArch as I can. I decided to be pretty thorough, but I won't be including too many arcade cores, Blue MSX for MSX and Vice for Commodore 64, nor will I include redundant cores like MGVA or Genesis plus GX. I'll also skip a few game engines like Mr. Boom and Cave Story. As it is right now, RetroArch will not use the extra 16MB of RAM that the GameCube has access to, so every core is currently very limited in memory, as the RetroArch part of the program is using around 10MB already. This makes supporting arcade games very difficult. After some quick testing with FB Neo and MAME 2003, neither could fit Turtles in Time even after getting rid of unused drivers. Turtles in Time is special to me because it was one of the first arcade games I remember playing as a kid at Pizza Hut. Luckily, the GameCube has a unique port of Turtles in Time. It's not the greatest way to play the game, but it works, and I tend to prefer the Super Nintendo version anyway. Going back to the negatives, no CPS2 or Neo Geo game would fit, and I wasn't able to get the Neo Geo CD core to load any game. Regardless, I managed to get 20 cores working well enough on the GameCube. So to start things off, here's a list of cores that you can expect with this release. Number 1. MAME 2003 Extreme. This core has been heavily modified to only work with Pac-Man and Mrs. Pac-Man. These games are small enough to fit without problems, and they run perfectly. Number 2. FB Neo. This core is much slower than MAME, but manages to fit the original Puzzle Bubble as well as the 20th anniversary release of Miss Pac-Man and Galaga. Also supported are Quicks and Arkanoid. Number 3. Cannonball. This is not an emulator, but an engine for running the arcade version of Outrun with enhancements. Though most of the enhancements are too slow to work on the GameCube, you know, things like widescreen and upscaled resolutions, but you can still run the game at a smooth 60 FPS and with 240p output. It's a pretty fun core, you can even set the game to play itself. Fun. Number 4. Now's a good time to talk about GPSP. It's one of the more interesting cores of the bunch. It can play a lot of GBA games well enough, some even better than a real GBA. I found that a few games exhibit slowdowns, like Final Fantasy IV's opening. But for the most part, it performs decently. There's no rumble support, but the save system has been slightly adjusted so that some types of save files use the correct sizes in order to make them compatible with my GBA bonus pack tool, as well as the SHA transfer tool. So in the future, it'll be possible to take your SHA from the Sonic GBA games to Sonic DX or Sonic Adventure 2. Number 5. Pico Drive. Knuckles Chaotix. But seriously, Pico Drive is an excellent core. It runs every Genesis, Game Gear, Master System game I've thrown at it, and even the Sega CD exclusive version of Sonic 1 Megamix. This is why I didn't include Genesis Plus GX. Number 6. SNES 9X 2005. This one comes in 3 styles, with the original audio core, the accurate audio core, as well as a version of the accurate core with the ability to load ROMs directly from the storage device. This one is meant for really big games like the Tokimeki Memorial translation, which is 8 megabytes. Number 7. Pokemini. The Pokemini stands out a bit from the rest because it wouldn't exist without the GameCube. It was apparently made from reverse engineering Pokemon Channel, a GameCube exclusive title. This core even supports Rumble. Number 8. Visual Boy Advance. Though VBA is mostly known as a Game Boy Advance emulator, this one won't run GBA games. Instead, it can run Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. Unlike other Game Boy emulators, this one supports Rumble and has clear sounding audio. Number 9. Gear Boy. Another Game Boy emulator. This one doesn't render the LCD off screen as a blank screen, so it's a bit different when playing some games. It's worth mentioning that the recent translations for Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster Capsule GB, as well as the very first Yu-Gi-Oh! Game on the Game Boy, are known to have visual glitches on most accurate emulators, but on the GameCube, Gear Boy is the only core that plays them correctly. Number 10. Gambate. A good choice for Game Boy games. There's no rumble support and audio seems noisier and closer to how it sounds on my Game Boy Color. Number 11. Beetle Super Graphics. PC Engine CD games tend to stutter whenever there's an audio change, but for the most part it works well enough. I'm not super familiar with the TurboGrafx 16, but I could always go for some ballads. Number 12. Beetle Neopop for Neo Geo Pocket. Sonic Pocket Adventure. Number 13. Beetle Cine for the Wonder Swan. Honestly, not very familiar with this console, but it seems to work well. Number 14. FBA CPS-1. I managed to run Nemo, Willow, Knights of the Round, and Final Fight, but bigger games like Street Fighter 2 or Cadillacs and Dinosaurs won't fit in memory. Number 15. Nestopia. Nestopia was problematic at first because it had a very large database file that would take up so much memory that Kirby's Adventure and Metal Slater Glory would not run. Once that database was removed, they're now both working fairly well. Number 16. FCE Ultra. This is probably the most popular choice for NES and Famicom games. It's faster than Nestopia and tends to be compatible with ROM hacks. Number 17. Quickness. For the sake of completeness, Quickness is here, and it's so quick that it performs extremely well on the GameCube. Number 18. Bex. For Becktrix. I don't like this console. Number 19. Stella 2014. For Atari 2600. Ditto. Number 20. Oh, I ran out of cores. Well, there are some additional ones based on existing cores that I think might be useful to have. These are GPSP Mem1. This can be used to load ROMs that have been zipped, skipping the process of extracting to the storage device. Since it uses so much memory, only 4 MB ROMs work. There's also Cannonball Autoboot. Cannonball only runs one game. So the idea here is to automatically launch the game upon loading the core, but the path is hard-coded for the GC loader, so it's not very useful in some cases. I also built the CPS-1 core with FB Neo, though I've only tested Nemo on it. I do have one more game that I might as well include, Space Cadet Pinball. This is not a RetroArch core, but it's the first time this game works with the GC loader. It does have one small problem, it currently fails to load the background music. But it's still a lot of fun, so I guess there's 20 cores in a way. All the source code for these programs has been uploaded to GitHub, and if someone wishes to support the Flippy drive eventually, they can use my version of RetroArch as a good place to start. After all this work, I can finally say confidently that the GameCube is really good for playing retro games. I've been playing a lot of PS1 games lately and it has also surpassed my expectations. Every title I throw at it runs either full speed or very close to it. In some ways, it really feels like having another Wii. And next time, I hope I can keep things going by expanding the media capabilities of the console. And oh no, I forgot about the Atari Lynx!